From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Consider This with Kathy Wyatt, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Through his 48 years of public service, Alan has been an example of dignity and a source of inspiration to countless Nebraskans. Alan is well known across Nebraska and even around the world for his commitment to his work and his affinity for meeting new people. As Nebraska Secretary of State, he worked tirelessly to protect the integrity of our elections. He brought this commitment to integrity with him to his next role as Executive Director of the Nebraska Press Association as well. He has traveled to many countries and met with people from all walks of life, establishing relationships with everyone he meets along the way. Alan likes to say his career took him to 48 countries in 48 years, and I'm sure he has no shortage of stories from these trips.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 27th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Nebraska's Alan J. Beermann. Ambassador to the world, he has graciously agreed to spend the next 30 minutes reflecting on his 5 decades of public service. Thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to Congressman Smith for his kind words at the outset.
You bet, you bet. I want to start with your thoughts about that video as you were watching that.
Well, it's kind of surreal. Because I've been very blessed. A lot of people helped me along the way. Any achievements that I may have had, I was on the shoulders of a lot of people. I had a lot of breaks. I had good health. My parents were very strict. They taught me the world of ethics, and they taught me hard work, and they taught me to never watch the clock.
Your story starts in Dakota County, Alan. Tell us what it was like to grow up there.
Well, I grew up on a farm, and we were off the mail route. So the roads leading to our farm were mud roads. So in the springtime of the year, it was pretty tough getting to school. I went to a country school. You promised not to laugh. My school was called Brushy Bend. It was a rural school, but I caution you, we had 2 rooms and 3 teachers because we had a music teacher also. But more importantly, for a country school, we had a hot lunch program. And all of the farm ladies, mostly German, took their turns cooking hot meals for all of we students at our school. And so we had a hot lunch program before they became fashionable.
Wow, your parents immigrated from Germany. Why is that important for viewers to know?
Well, I think it's important because it shows that this is a great country and that immigrants have the opportunity to succeed here, to do well here, to raise a family, to add to society, to be a part of the community. And my parents had to learn English first when they got here. And so blending into the community was tough, but they were able to do that. And if you ask a second question, I can tell you why.
Why?
My parents enjoyed, my mother especially, cooking. And she became quite famous as a farm lady and a cook in Dakota County. And whenever the Sioux City Chamber of Commerce would have special guests, ambassadors, special visitors who wanted to see a farm, they said, aha, it's the Beermann farm you want to go to because Amanda Beermann cooks all of her own meals, bakes all of her own bread and all of her own pastry and all of her own pies. So all of these distinguished visitors from all over the world, when they came to see a farm community and a real farm, they were brought to the farm of the Beermanns, and especially Amanda Beermann, because of her cooking and her baking.
Wow, you must have been very proud. Did you pick up any of that in the kitchen, Alan? Are you?
No. I actually can burn boiling water. But anyway, What was interesting was because of my mother's baking and her cooking, the Sioux City and South Sioux City chambers, when they had special guests, always wanted to come to the Beermann farm. Not to see the farm necessarily, but to taste my mother's baking and her German cooking of all kind of German dishes. Now, what did it mean for we kids? We kids had to make sure that the lawn was always mowed, all the weeds were cut, we mowed all the ditches, we trimmed bushes, we had to make sure there were no leaves on the lawn. So my job in this whole thing was to make sure that the diplomats who visited our farm saw a nice farm in America.
Good practice for what was ahead for you. I also learned in researching that you're a twin.
I have a twin sister. She lives in Castle Rock, Colorado, and right now, that's her in the middle there. She's suffering from a broken hip. She was taking out the garbage the other day and somehow tripped and fell over the garbage can and cracked her hip. But she's doing fine. She's doing fine.
Okay, thank you. I want to put up another photo for our viewers. And you shared with me this is high school, senior year in high school. So that really is kind of launching you into college. What's important for us to know about your college days?
Well, my college days, because we had entertained in our home a lot of diplomats from all over the world who came because that's where they came to visit the farm. I got very interested in the international scene and in meeting people from around the world. And so at Midland College, the first thing that I joined was the International Relations Club. And by the time I was a junior, I found myself as the president of this club. And so I got to host and meet and greet diplomats from all over the world. And it got me really interested in the international scene. And then now, as a part of my lifetime and my career, I got to visit 48 countries from around the world.
I'll be darned. Do you have a favorite? I mean, was there anything, gosh, that's quite a bit of traveling, quite a bit of interaction. Was there one trip over another that just really stands out for you?
Well, it depends on the seasons. For example, if you're going to be in Austria, you want to be there at Christmas time because the whole country is a Christmas card. I mean, it's just stunningly beautiful. Another place that's very, very interesting to visit is Istanbul. It's one of the great cities in the world. And then if you go to the city of Ephesus, you can begin to see the Bible and biblical stories actually unfold there. And then if you go to Austria, you get involved in all the Austrian music and so on and so forth. So it depends on the seasons and it depends on what part of the world you're in. But I encourage everyone to try to travel if you can because you'll learn a lot. Travel is another master's degree.
Let me ask you, as you did all of that traveling, what people thought about Nebraska, what their impressions were of Nebraska, and how maybe that has changed over the years.
You know, it really didn't change much because everyone who knew about Nebraska had a good impression. And the impression was that the people in Nebraska were kind and they were genuine. Their word was good. Their handshake meant a lot in the business world. And they knew that we were a caring and a sharing people. And so Nebraska has a good reputation around the world of being ethical, decent, nice people, and dependable. And your handshake is good.
Let me ask you something. When you would travel, knowing you were from here, what was your favorite thing to share about Nebraska?
I think the favorite thing to share about Nebraska was the fact that we do things. There's a thing called the Nebraska way, and it's hard to define, but as Nebraskans, we all know it. But some of the tenets of Nebraska way is the fact that we are caring, sharing, we're inviting, we're ethical, we don't need long contracts to do business, Our handshake is good. We're genuine and we're ethical. And we're God-fearing people.
Thank you.
Great Americans, very patriotic.
Which kind of is a nice segue into this whole, couple decades as Secretary of State, plus, actually, right?
Yes.
So your first campaign, memorable, why?
My first campaign was very memorable because one of my good friends and I were running against each other. And a couple of times we actually drove to campaign appearances together. We never thought of denigrating our opponent. That just didn't happen in those days. We didn't want to denigrate the office. I mean, we were running for the third highest office of the state. And if you denigrate each other and take the campaign down into the gutter, it denigrates the office. And then I always remembered the old Chinese proverb, and I wish people would remember that today in the election process. He or she who is throwing mud is losing ground. And that always stuck with me. And so we never thought about speaking ill of our opponent. It just didn't cross our minds. And that's unfortunately not true today.
You mentioned the office. For viewers, how would you sum up the roles and responsibilities of Secretary of State?
It's an office that has a very wide array of duties. For example, you're a member of the Pardon Board. So you have to consider cases with regard to pardoning or commuting sentences. It's the keeper of the seal, and so you have to certify all of the documents. More importantly, we handled all of the elections. And I was so careful about that job that my own deputy, whom I selected, was by my choice of the opposite party. I wanted balance in the office. I didn't want anybody ever thinking that our elections were fixed or rigged and not accurate. And so I protected that with great dignity, because it had to be. If the election process breaks down, our country is gone. So I wanted to make sure that that never happened, and we never, ever lost a lawsuit.
In your 24 years, you served with 6 governors.
I did.
We are going to put a photo of each one up for our viewers, and as we do that, Alan, the first thing that comes to mind, maybe just a couple sentences about each of them, if you would, please.
Okay.
All right, we'll start here.
Governor Beermann was the governor when I was Deputy Secretary of State. He was a banker from northeast Nebraska, a very distinguished gentleman. He was very hard-nosed, and I mean that in a positive way. Well-dressed, well-groomed. One time he and I were reviewing the troops for summer camp of the National Guard, and Governor Beermann always wore very nice suits, I think probably even silk. And one time we were reviewing the troops, and they had what's called a mounted parade. That's all of the tanks that parade by you. Well, Governor Beermann and I were sitting in the reviewing stand. The wind changed about the time the mounted parade started, and 600 tanks paraded by us. And by the time the parade was done, Governor Beermann and I were totally covered in red, fine sand, and his nice silk suit was ruined. But Nabi Beermann was, he did a lot. All of the very first things that happened in our state were the creation of Governor Beermann.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to the next one here. We have so much to talk about. Here we go.
Jim Exon was a local businessman in Lincoln. He had Exxons. A cute story about that. One time when I was Secretary of State, the Exxon, E-X-X-O-N, gas company, worldwide, came in and they wanted to register the name of Exxon. And I had to turn it down and refuse them. And their attorneys were quite perturbed about why would you turn it down. And I said, well, because that name's already taken. What do you mean that name's taken? They said, well, who owns that trade name and trademark? And I said, well, it's the man down in the corner office of the Capitol. And they said, what does he do? And I said, well, he happens to be the governor, and we know him as Governor Exxon. Mm-hmm. And so the name Exxon would not be available in the state of Nebraska.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the next one here, Alan.
Charles Thone was a very pragmatic from the farm community up in northeast Nebraska. He served in Congress as well as being governor. And Charlie had a saying that we always thought was cute. Whenever something big was happening, or even if it wasn't something big and dramatic, he would always say, that's an awful lot of potatoes with not much gravy. But Charlie was very down-to-earth, very ethical, very honest, very hardworking, and simply a very nice person.
Thank you. All right, next.
Bob Carey and I actually, we were racquetball partners from time to time. He owned a health club, mm-hmm. and we would play racquetball against each other from time to time at his racket club in East Lincoln. And Bob was, he was a good governor policy-wise. It was hard for him to stay focused. Mm. He was, and not that it affected, the genuineness of his policy, but it was hard for him to stay focused because he had a lot of things going. And then, of course, he started living with and dating Deborah Winger when she was at the mansion. So that created a lot of discussion and some chirping. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times his policies and some of the things that he created and achieved got lost in Deborah Winger. Mm-hmm. But I would say he was hardworking. We had a good time getting together. We had a good time, and we worked together very well. He was very kind to me, and I tried to stay very kind to him. And I think we voted the same on most issues.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. We have just a couple more.
Kay Orr, one of the first female governors in Nebraska and in the country, extremely hardworking. She was a no-nonsense lady. She was very kind, and we became kind of close to Kay because she adored my two young sons. Oh. And one of them always rode with her and sat with her in parades, like the Seward 4th of July parade or whatever. But Kay was a good policy person. She hired really good people around her, really good people. And she was strong-willed, but in a positive way. And she made a lot of things happen in our state, and I really enjoyed working with her because she was ethical, hardworking, and she stayed focused.
Excellent. Okay, here's our final one.
Ben Nelson, he was of the opposite party, but in fact I had lunch with him yesterday here in Lincoln. A longtime friend, a very dear friend of mine, and when he was in the Senate, he always took care of me when we were in Washington, and we got along wonderfully in the state capitol. As a matter of fact, what touched my heart deeply was when I was finished with my terms as Secretary of State, he had a cutout of my door removed, and it said Secretary of State Alan Beermann, Suite 2300. He had that cut out and framed and gave it to me as a gift when I departed as Secretary of State. And today it hangs in my apartment.
Very special.
Very special
indeed.
And we had lunch again with him yesterday, and he presented me with an autographed copy of his book.
Lifelong friends.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
And we were of opposite parties, but we never let that get in the way. We always stayed focused on the policy. What was right was right. Mm-hmm. And most things that are right don't have R's and D's.
Thank you for that. I want to go from politics now to celebrities.
Oh, my.
You've met just about everybody and their brother, it seems, Alan. We're going to put up some photos. And as we're doing that, just tell us what's coming to mind as we're looking at all these people with whom you've met here.
Richard Nixon, as you know, was President of the United States. He visited Nebraska with some regularity. Here's Gerald Ford with my wife Linda and myself, born in Omaha. He's a Nebraskan. Here I'm meeting, oh, look at my sideburns, wow. Here I'm meeting Johnny Carson, and he's doing a bit of magic. This is Gordon MacRae from the movie Oklahoma. He lived in Nebraska and here in Lincoln for a long time. My parents were dear friends of Baroness Maria von Trapp. She was the real Maria of The Sound of Music. And here's Lawrence Welk, whom, with my wife and I, Lawrence Welk used to dance with my parents in Sioux City, Iowa. Here I'm meeting Elvis Presley. I met him twice, once in Omaha, once in Lincoln, and this is in the dressing room in Omaha. There's George Foreman, the boxer, and he was just a big teddy bear, and he was so nice. And this is Art Linkletter, I believe. We met with him several times. And here is Bob Newhart. He was funny he was just funny and really clever with his humor. Clayton Anderson, he and I have become very dear friends. In fact, I think we're having dinner together this coming Friday. But he took stuff up to the twice up to space stations, a tie for me, and he also took some other things up to the skies and brought them back for me, and we made a nice frame of them. And so we get together with some frequency. And now, you know, he runs the over on I-80, he runs the Sack Museum.
Wow. Well, all of this should come to no surprise to our viewers, can be found in a book. You are launching a book. This is so exciting. So we have a cover we're going to put up for our viewers, but I just want to put that up here because this is a very proud moment. You've had so many in your lifetime, and to be able to have folks find this all in one place. Tell us about the book, Alan.
The lower left is my grade school photo, I think probably 6th or 7th grade there. Incidentally, my mother we had designer clothes. My mother made most of my grade school clothes out of feed sacks that you would buy feed for the cattle. Wow. And then the upper left is my high school graduation. On the upper right is a picture of me in the state capitol standing next to one of the chandeliers holding a folio with the state seal. And the bottom right is the current cover. That's me as, I guess, the state relic. And after I had retired from 30 years in the state capitol.
Wow. You have dedicated this book to your late wife, Linda.
Yes.
Who you saying that her face is reflected on almost every page. Why do you say that?
Linda and I were married 53 years. We did everything together. We traveled to 48 countries. Here's a picture of us. When we got married, we rode from her church to Arbor Lodge for the reception in a horse-drawn carriage. I still have that walking stick and that top hat. And her wedding dress was just featured the other day here at a big show in Lincoln of wedding dresses. And we were married 53 years, and we lost Linda last year.
What will you remember most about her, Alan? Favorite part about her?
This picture is probably one of the favorites. She was the first lady. I was president of all of the secretaries of state of the country for a year. She was the first lady. She always was radiant and I think elegant. She had a good personality. She spent 22 years doing the weather for the state of Nebraska twice a day. And when she passed, I think we had over 600 letters from farmers who religiously never missed her weather programs twice a day on Channel 1011 because farmers depend on the weather. And so all of these sympathy cards kept coming from farmers everywhere that we never met, but they had such nice things to say about Linda.
What is next for you, Alan?
Well, what's next to me is I want to, as long as I can and my health holds out and I'm able and mobile, I want to continue in some way giving back to the community and my church and to friends, because whatever success I may have had, I was always on the shoulders of others. And I appreciate people that helped take care of me or helped guide me or who helped me in school or helped me with in any way they could. A lot of people in this state were angels. And everybody did things the Nebraska way. And the Nebraska way is that they were always caring and sharing. And so this is a chance for me to say thank you to all of you wonderful Nebraskans and others for all that you did in any way to help me have, I guess, some modicum of success. That's for others to measure. But I am grateful for all the people who have touched my heart in so many ways.
Well, we are grateful to you as well for all of your years of public service. Thank you so much. And we've got 30 seconds, Statehood Day. We're recording around Statehood Day. What do you have to say about that?
Well, there's a Statehood Day function in the state capitol, and I'm proud to say that 41 years ago, John Kingsbury and I, John's a banker from Ponca, it was his idea that we have a big banquet on Statehood Day, the only dinner ever held in the Capitol Rotunda. And he said, Alan, you put it together. And this year, I think it's either 41 or 42 years. It's a sellout every year. It's black tie, and you're dining in the Capitol Rotunda, which is a very special privilege. And any Nebraskan could buy a ticket for that. Fantastic. You can find the rest of Alan J. Beermann's story by going to the book. And there's his website, alanbeermann.com. Sir, I want to thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your time, your expertise, all of your stories, and that public service that I just feel is going to continue to go on and on. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah. Thank you for the courtesy and the opportunity to share with your viewers. You betcha. Students, thank you for working so hard behind the scenes. And of course, to all of you for watching. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television in the School of Communication. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call the UNO School of Communication at 402-554-2600 during regular business hours. Or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Success doesn't happen overnight, and it also doesn't happen alone. The University of Nebraska at Omaha ensures that every student can earn their degree. We will work to reduce barriers and be a champion for affordability, accessibility, and develop engaging programs, as well as support systems. Visit unomaha.edu to learn more.
Coming up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, faded grass to a full.